Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to my channel. My name is Paul, the Canadian Snowman, back once again. We're doing Battle of the Roses. We're doing the Wars of the Roses, Battle of Barnet and Tewkesbury, 1471. So, is Henry like an adult now? I'm guessing so, because this is years later. I also want to point out that obviously do realize that I should have done the 100 Years' War first, but you guys have also let me know that that series is not done yet, and so uh, I'm not after this series. I'm not going to jump into the 100 Years' War because I'd rather do it when it's done. So I guess you guys can let me know in the comments eventually when it does end up finishing, because I don't want to start it and then have to wait. Because I think it's like 4 or 5 episodes in, if I remember correctly, and yeah, I just rather wait till that one's done. I probably shouldn't jump to this one right away. I just like the name. I've heard the name. I just want to do it. I don't really understand what part of the timeline this was in, so I apologize about that if I'm kind of doing it in a different, in an order that I'm not. But since I've already started, we're gonna jump into it, make the best of it, learn some cool stuff, and then watch some excitement. If I remember correctly, Henry, it's Henry basically and the Queen. I think it's Edward the Yorks, something like that. I'm sure it's gonna go first minute usually goes over kind of real quickly what happened in the episode before. So if you're new here, I think you should be all right. But if you're new here, I would definitely check out the previous episodes so you have a little bit more understanding of what's going on right now. And if you're new here, got the whole bunch of I got a bunch of playlists of different wars and stuff. So definitely check out the playlists. Because definitely some cool stuff out there. And yeah, with that being said, I guess we're gonna jump into it. We get 2 battles. That's awesome. Usually it's just 1 battle. I'm excited about having 2 battles here. Yeah, let's do it, guys. Before we do, please hit the like and subscribe button below if you haven't done yet. If you haven't done so yet, I might be able to talk today, but apparently I'm tripping over my words, so you guys might have a little more trouble than usual understanding me, but that's okay, right? Yeah. Oh yeah. She came in. Eventually, I'm gonna get to this video, but I got my first case of Universal. Is it Universal Yums? Yeah, Universal Yums, which is they send you a box of snacks from a different country every month. Uh, this is actually South Korea. Some snacks from South Korea. I haven't opened the box yet. I'm going to get to it. Eventually going to get to a video where I open the box and basically test out these snacks from South Korea. I'm not sure when I'm going to get to it, but just keep your eyes open for it. I think it'll be pretty interesting. Anyway. And yeah, we're going to jump into this. 3, 2, 1, bam.
The first phase of the Wars of the Roses concluded with the Battle of Towton and the ascension of Edward IV of the House of York to the English throne. Yet his Lancastrian enemies still had supporters and allies, and the power of the nobles was not curbed.
Is anyone else, I'm sorry, but when I hear the Lancasters enemies, my first thought is Game of Thrones. Has anyone is that anyone watching it? Has your mind gone there at all? For some reason, I keep thinking Game of Thrones every time I throw that name out. So, anyways,
had supporters and allies, and the power of the nobles was not curbed. Intrigue and backstabbing would change the situation many times before the second part of the Wars of the Roses peaked at the battles of Barnet and Tewkesbury.
Yeah.
But before we jump to the video, allow us to thank our sponsor, the new mobile strategy game, Gods and Glory, which is exactly what you need if you miss the massive empire. The comprehensive diplomat downloading Gods and Glory and use our special promo.
I'm accepting sponsors, so yeah, it'd be awesome. Anyways.
After the decisive victory at Towton in 1461, Edward IV returned to London for his coronation, while Henry VI, alongside his wife Margaret and son Edward, fled to Scotland. The Lancastrian party still controlled part of Northumberland, and Edward left Richard of Warwick, aptly named the Kingmaker for his role in the rise of the Yorks, to deal with the last remnants of the resistance. By 1463, Warwick retook all of the castles belonging to the Lancastrian nobles and returned to the south. As Edward's position was strong, he decided to forgive some of his past enemies, among them Henry Somerset and Ralph Percy.
I just want to point out, too, that thank you guys in the comments. So I guess Scotland and Ireland are basically like Viking territory right now, right? So I just want to kind of point that out. Thank you for pointing that out to me, so... Yep.
King Edward was wary that the Scots supported the Lancasters throughout the first phase of the war, so in 1463 he asked James III to sign a treaty. The Scots agreed and sent their diplomats to York in 1464. To prevent the agreement from happening, Lancastrian nobles, nudged by Queen Margaret, rebelled in 1464 under the leadership of Somerset and Percy in Northumberland. Edward sent a force led by Warwick's brother John Neville to the north, and in May he defeated Somerset at Hexham. All Lancastrian leaders were killed, which ended the rebellion for good. The treaty with the Scots was signed, and Queen Margaret and Prince Edward escaped to France to their relative King Louis XI. In 1465, Henry VI was captured in Lancashire and brought to London, which ushered in a short period of peace in England. During this time, Richard Warwick became...
Edward seems like right now, it seems like, like he's got it, like he's got the throne, and it doesn't seem like, anything's going to happen. It seems like he's got a lot of power. He's got the, Henry under his belt now. The Queen is in France. He doesn't have much resistance right now, so this will be very interesting to see what happens next, because this is the War of the Roses, and I know this is like I think it's a 4-part series. Is the Queen going to end up getting help from France? Because France, they're a big, big powerful country. So kind of curious to see if they kind of stick their nose, because they might have, they might want to know they might want to have I'm sorry, I trip over my words. They might want to have a say in who is king in England, because obviously whoever's in there that better helps their country, they prefer that one in there, right? But anyways, yeah. Now I'm kind of curious to see how this plays out now. And Richard the Kingmaker here, I'm wondering, I guess, what happens here with him.
During this time, Richard Warwick became even more powerful, assuming many offices and taking lands from the Lancastrians. He tried to assert influence over the young king, and he saw negotiations with Louis in 1466 as one of the ways to do it. Warwick tried to marry Edward with the daughter of the French king, Anne, and this is when a secret came out. The king had privately married Elizabeth Woodville in 1464, and the fact that she was from the lower nobility shocked the magnates. On top of that, Edward entered a secret alliance with the Duke of Burgundy, Charles the Bold, negating Warwick's negotiations with Louis and embarrassing him. Warwick left the court in 1467 and started plotting against the king.
Wow.
So
wow. Things apparently were strong for, I guess, a minute ago, but now, obviously, what was his name?
1469, one of his captains...
Richard just got made like a fool, and makes himself look bad, and I guess the French probably don't like how that was done, probably felt pretty disrespected probably doing that. I'm very curious to see, because obviously, if you have France on your side, that's a pretty powerful ally. So I wonder how the Queen's gonna jump in here, maybe with, I don't know, kind of curious now really how to see how this plays out. Because like every moment, it seems like things just been changing, a lot, so.
In 1469, one of his captains started a rebellion in the north. Edward moved to Nottingham in the early days of July, but upon learning that the rebels outnumbered him, decided to wait for reinforcements. However, Warwick entered London a few days after and declared for the rebels alongside his son-in-law, the king's brother, George. The rebels managed to bypass Nottingham and attacked the royal reinforcements at a place called Edgecote Moor. Supported by Warwick's troops, the rebels routed the forces of the king. Edward was captured on his way back to London. Warwick's attempt to rule in the king's name or even dethrone him failed, as Edward was still very popular among the nobility and the commoners. Rebellions forced Warwick to release the king, and he ended up with even less influence over governance than before.
I don't get this, so why? I know like Richard is kind of made kind of a fool for France, but like all of them are allies, right? I mean, him and the king are allies. I mean, he still has. I think his best bet is still to keep the side of Edward, because I just think the battling amongst themselves right now, it just leaves an opening for like Henry and the Queen and all that stuff. So I guess Warwick, he really took that personally. The thing with the French king, but I guess he really does want power for himself, and I guess I don't know. I guess he doesn't want to wait, till later on maybe to try and get it. Wow. I'm just waiting for like the French to come over with the Queen and kind of like destroy all their plans up here now.
So Warwick decided to instigate another rebellion in Lincolnshire in March of 1470. This time the king moved swiftly, not allowing the rebels to connect with Warwick. At Losecoat Field, Edward's outnumbered army defeated and routed the rebels.
Wow. Okay.
This forced Warwick to flee to France, where Louis reconciled him with Queen Margaret. Kingmaker was going to restore Henry VI, who by now wasn't in possession of his faculties, to the English throne using French support. In September, Warwick landed in Devon. Initially, Edward was planning to march against him, but Warwick's brother John, who had remained loyal to the king until now, finally rebelled, and Edward had no other choice but to leave England. In October, Warwick entered London and restored Henry to the throne.
Wow.
Meanwhile, Edward found refuge in Flanders, which was under the control of Charles the Brave. Although the help he received from Burgundy was minimal, Edward returned to England in March of 1471.
I just want to say, like, Richard, definitely the kingmaker. It seems like whoever he goes for ends up being king here. So yeah, he definitely deserves his name. But it is just very interesting how nothing's very set here. I mean, the country is very like, I don't think, like off tilt. Like no one, there is no one like big name that can just take power and take over. Everything is just up in the air right now, and like you really don't know what's going to happen, because in 1 second someone could be king and another second and someone else can be king. So something big is going to have to happen throughout this series. Just maybe everyone just dies except for like the one like named guy, maybe, I don't know. But wow, everything's so back and forth and wishy-washy right now. It's kind of crazy.
Was minimal, Edward returned to England in March of 1471. Edward used deceit, stating that he was not vying for the throne and had come back to reclaim the Duchy of York. The city of York allowed him to enter, and soon he started his march towards London, receiving reinforcements along the way. Even his disloyal brother George rejoined him. It seems that Warwick was waiting for aid from his allies in England and France, so he avoided battle, as it was expected that Edmund Somerset would defend the capital. However, the Londoners preferred Edward, and Somerset was forced to leave, either to avoid rebellion or to unite with Margaret, who was going to land in Dorset.
Wow.
Edward took control of the city and captured Henry VI yet again. Edward had between 10 and 15,000.
Please, how old is Henry right now, man? Like, dude, do something. I'm sorry. I mean, I could be totally way off right now, but Henry, is he just kind of like chilling in like some kind of suite, in London? Just like, okay, I mean, they captured him, but obviously they're not. He's not being held probably like in a prison cell. He's probably being held in some kind of mansion probably where he's just not allowed to leave. So I'm sure he's probably still living the good life, but I don't know. You think that if the ones you're with, your allies that you're in London with, if they know this is going to happen with Edward, they just kind of sneak you out with them and not just leave you there. But I don't know, because I always think whoever has the king has the power, right? Oh, wow, definitely interesting. Like Henry, man, Duke seems to stay like in, not really, it's prison, but not prison. I don't know. Keeps staying captured.
Men and was outnumbered. Edward had between 10 and 15,000 men and was outnumbered by Warwick's army, which had more than 20,000. But he knew that he needed to attack before more reinforcements could join his enemy from the south. Warwick was probably hoping to block the road to the north, as on the 12th of April his troops took a position to the north of London at a place called Barnet. The Yorkist army arrived on the evening of the 13th, and Edward positioned his troops in the dark, planning to take his stand at dawn. It is said that Edward made a mistake in the dark, underestimating the distance between the two armies, and moved his troops closer to those of Warwick than he had intended. This, however, proved fortunate, as the Lancastrians, who were using their artillery to weaken their enemy, were overshooting Edward's troops, who moved through most of the night to take up positions. He deployed Hastings on the left and his brother Richard, Duke of Gloucester, aged 18 at the time, on the right, while George was to stay with him in the centre. A small reserve was stationed behind the main line. Opposite them, Warwick and his brother John Neville commanded the centre, with Exeter on the left side and Oxford on the right. The Lancastrian knights were dismounted, as that usually showed that they weren't going to retreat and would fight among the commoners until the very end.
Okay.
As the morning of April 14th dawned, a mist engulfed the battlefield. The armies failed to line up parallel to each other, with both ending up in a slight oblique formation in relation to the enemy. The Lancastrians had numbers, so this at first worked to their advantage. Oxford's unit attacked the flank of Edward's army. Hastings' troops were soon overwhelmed. Many of them died during the retreat, while the remainder fled all the way to London, claiming that Edward had already lost the battle.
Wow.
Unfortunately for Warwick, a big part of Oxford's unit remained detached from the battle, as they attempted to loot their fallen enemies, with only part of it returning to the fight. As visibility was still poor, neither side knew about these events. Meanwhile, Gloucester repeated Oxford's manoeuvre, attacking the Lancastrian left and pushing Exeter's troops back. This shifted the lines yet again. Warwick, aware of this, ordered his reserves to support Exeter and restore the formation, while his forces moved against the enemy's centre, and the lines finally joined.
Wow.
It is said that the remainder of Oxford's troops...
That's pretty crazy, though, how, like, the lines just kind of switched, from horizontal to vertical. I know, obviously, it's not like that in real life, but it's kind of amazing how things just really just swayed over like that. And I wonder if these troops are going to end up engaging the guys that are back there looting. Obviously, we've definitely seen in past playlists and stuff or wars, these guys really want to loot. It seems to kind of become big, huge differences in battles because your men are either not ready because they're looting, or they're just not being part of the battle because they're just out of place. But anyways,
troops lines finally joined. It is said that the remainder of Oxford's troops returned to the battle at this point, and in the mist ended up behind the reserves commanded by John Neville, which were sent to support Exeter.
Wow.
Apparently, Oxford's coat of arms with stars on it was mistaken for Edward's banner with the sun on it. The panicked forces of Neville turned towards Oxford's troops and unleashed their bows, killing many of their comrades. As backstabbing was so common during this period, Oxford and his men cried treason and started retreating to the north. This cry resonated across the Lancastrian line, which ended up in disarray. At this point, the fog started to dissipate, and Edward, seeing his enemies panicked, sent in his reserves to move across the right side and attack the Lancastrians from the flank and rear.
Wow.
Soon Warwick and Neville were killed, while Exeter was captured. Between 5,000 and 10,000 Lancastrians were dead, while the Yorkists lost less than 1,000.
That is crazy. They start shooting at their own men. Like, isn't there? I say this all the time. Like, isn't there like a big difference? Like, was it the fog then? Did they say it was still kind of like foggy, the haze? That could easily be it. Because obviously each side doesn't have their own colors, right? So, I mean, you see someone behind you, and you're not expecting anyone to be there, and you see figures back there. You are probably going to think they're the enemy because you're not expecting anyone to be back there. So I can definitely understand that. But I guess the guys back there, they should realize this maybe, and I guess they're getting fired at. So like, we're getting out of Dodge, man. But I guess so. Yeah, I guess backstabbing was a common thing back then. So I guess everyone's kind of uneasy on the battlefield, especially when things are just not the way they should be. But wow, it's just kind of amazing how like they had this huge advantage in men, and it looked like they were gonna basically win this battle here, and then it just turned out they just got wiped out and got slaughtered there at the end. It's crazy. It's crazy how a lot of these battles, not just obviously not just this war, but just in all the battles in history that I've covered, just amazing how the outcomes, the reason things, the outcomes happen. It's kind of mind blowing how things actually happened back then. Because for me, I always just figure, before I start watching all these kind of videos, I always picture in my head, okay, head to head, people just run into each other, they smash against each other. Whoever has basically the last of the men is the winner. You don't really think about much as tactics and pulling your troops and pulling these troops and putting these different kind of troops there. It's really cool to see the chess pieces being moved around, because even though with all the videos I've done, oops, the wrong thing. With all the videos I've done, it still blows my mind how these battles go, because it's like they're all different, Obviously, some battles are very familiar and like they kind of go in the same the same kind of outcome that I expect, but like most of the time, at least, or at least half the time, like things happen where I can't predict at all. I've never seen coming, so. So it's part of the excitement of doing these videos. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen next. Anyway, I'm sorry about that. And back to the video.
Unfortunately for Edward, while this battle was raging, Queen Margaret and her son, Prince Edward, landed in Dorset and were greeted by Somerset.
Yeah.
Edward dismissed most of his troops and returned to London, then learned about the arrival of Margaret 2 days later. The Queen knew about the death of Warwick at Barnet, so she decided to move towards Wales with her 6,000-strong army to connect with one of her supporters, Jasper Tudor. A few of her units were sent to the east to deceive Edward, but the king was not fooled and moved swiftly to the west with his remaining 5,000. By the time Margaret reached Bristol on the 30th of April, Edward was at Cirencester, some 60 kilometers to the northeast. He attempted to block the Lancastrian route to the north, but was outmaneuvered. It was becoming clear that Margaret was trying to move across the River Severn to reach Wales, so Edward sent a message to the governor of Gloucester, the city which controlled the nearest crossing, ordering him not to let Margaret pass. The Lancastrian army had no other choice but to move to the north and cross near Tewkesbury. However, Edward...
I'm sorry, I like the fact that, women are like generals and lead armies here. I just think it's really cool. And it definitely makes me tend to want to kind of go for, the woman leader and stuff. I just think it's cool because you don't see it very often back in those days. Well, at least in my videos I've been watching. So yeah, it's definitely kind of cool to see.
Edward was moving as swiftly as usual, and his speed made it impossible for the Lancastrians to cross the bridge. On the 4th of May, they were forced to fight him at Tewkesbury. The battlefield was full of small woods, hedges and marshes, which was favourable for the Lancastrians, who assumed a defensive position, dividing their army into 3 equal parts. Their left and rear were protected by a river, while the centre was positioned on a hill. Similarly, Edward divided his troops into 3 groups, but a small cavalry ambush was placed in the woods to the extreme left. The Yorkists also had a decided advantage in artillery, as the army of the Queen was forced to abandon its cannons during the march. The battle started with a Yorkist advance supported by artillery volleys, but as the terrain was broken, it was impossible for Edward to move in a coherent line. Somerset attempted to use the divide in the enemy forces and attacked the unit commanded by Edward. Initially, this charge surprised the king and his troops, and they were pushed back. However, the charging Lancastrians ended up with the ambushing horsemen to their rear, and a charge routed them. Most of this unit was cut down. According to the legend, Somerset managed to return to his main line and killed the commander of the centre, who failed to support him. It was clear that the Lancastrians had lost, and their retreat ended up in a massacre. Most of the Lancastrian commanders, among them Somerset and Prince Edward, were executed, while Margaret was taken captive.
Wow. Man, Edward's kicking butt. The Lancasters are getting destroyed. Wow. And then the Queen's captured. Like, what can possibly happen next? There's got to be some kind of curveball coming up here, because I don't know how the tide turns now. And we still have 2 more episodes left. You think this would be the end of the series right here?
Edward IV won 2 impressive battles in a short span, but the war was hardly over, as Lancastrian allies were lurking nearby.
Okay, wow.
Our series on the Wars of the Roses will be concluded in the near future, so make sure you are subscribed to our channel and have pressed the bell.
Wow. So the Lancasters, they have a lot, of loyal, people with them, because every time, because they've been getting their butts whipped. Let's be honest right now. They've just been getting slaughtered. But people keep rising up to join them. There seems to be someone to always take the place of the downed troops, and pretty awesome. I mean, you kind of need those if you're going to take over a country. If you're going to be the king of that country, you kind of need the support of the people. I mean, like right now, it seems like the Lancasters had the majority of the support of the people. I think Edward has I don't know how big Edward's kind of support system is. It's just that he's been, I guess, the better general, or just luck has been on his side, maybe. But things are going right for him right now, which I guess they kind of have to be if you don't have as many people going for you. So definitely, I guess, these allies here, the Lancasters, who are building up an army now. I guess they're going to come try and save the Queen. While the king, just sits in his bedroom in London. I don't know what he's doing. Maybe he's living the good life for all we know. I don't know. But yeah, wow, man, so much happened this episode. I'm also kind of curious to see maybe how much France comes into play, and maybe the rest of this battle. They might not come into play at all. I'm kind of curious, maybe if France dips their nose in the business of England, to try and kind of like turn the war in whatever favor helps them. So I'm definitely kind of interested to see if that happens. I don't know what Burgundy is. I don't know what. I guess I haven't heard of a country named Burgundy, so I don't know what that is. I guess back then, that was just a different country back then, or just a different part, maybe France. I don't know. Maybe someone can let me know in the comments. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Please, if you haven't yet, I'd really appreciate it. And I'll catch you guys in future videos. Definitely some crazy stuff happening, like very quick crazy stuff, you know. So anyways, we're doing Battle of Bosworth, I guess, tomorrow, and that 14 years have passed. I hope Henry escapes. I hope Henry escapes and like just comes out onto his own and is the business man, just destroys all. I know it's not likely to happen, but I want Henry to be this. You know, he hasn't done much. I want him to just come out and have the people follow him and him just like go crazy. I think that'd be really cool to see. Probably expecting way too much on that, but I think that'd be fun. But you know, this is unpredictable, so you never know. You know, that might happen. But anyways, guys, like, subscribe. Catch you guys in future videos. I am out of here. Peace. Always a fun time. Guys, have a great night, great day. I'm out of here. Thank you.